or never. The first one says, when you multiply a given fraction by a factor greater than 1, the product will blank be less than the given fraction. So let's take a look at what the words actually say. When you multiply a given fraction, let's say that fraction is 1/2. And we're going to, what's it say? Multiply that fraction by a factor greater than 1. All right, so if we take some fraction and we multiply it by, I don't know, 2. All right, so that's a number greater than 1. The product will blank be less than the given fraction. Less than. All right, so what is 1/2 times 2? So 1/2 plus another 1/2 is going to be 1. And 1 is greater than the 1/2 that we started with. So it's bigger. And that's going to be the case all the time. It will always be bigger when you multiply by a factor greater than 1. So the product will be blank less than the given fraction. It's not going to be less than the given fraction, and it never will be. So this is where you write the word never. All right. The second part of this, let me give myself space to write another example up here, asks us, let's see, B. When you multiply a given fraction by a fraction less than 1, the product will blank be less than the given fraction. So all of these words are the same except for like this one. All right, so let's take the same given fraction. Just pick a fraction. I'm going to use 1/2 for this one. And we're told to multiply it by a factor that is less than 1. So we just want to pick some fraction that we're familiar with that is less than 1. Sorry. We also have, let's see, 1/2. That is a fraction we're familiar with, and it's less than 1. If we take 1/2 times 1/2, we get 1/4, which we've learned is less than a half. We could place it on a number line right here as 1/2, and 1/4 is over here. So that's less than 1. We'll go back and pick the words apart. When you multiply a given fraction by a factor less than 1, the product will blank be less than the given fraction. It's going to be smaller, and it will always be that way. And that was part of today's lesson. All right, last one. When you multiply a given fraction by a factor greater than 1, the product will blank be less than 1. So let me slow down enough to make sense of those words. When you multiply a given fraction, and for this we've been using our given fraction as 1/2, by a factor greater than 1 times, here we go, we did 2 again, it still works. The product will blank be less than 1. Well, it might sometimes, right? So in this case, it's going to be equal to 1. But if this given fraction multiplied by a factor greater than 1 were smaller in the first place, all right, so if this weren't 1/2, if our given fraction was 1/4, so we want to take that and we're going to multiply it some fraction, 1/4, times some factor, some other number, and it's greater than 1. 2 fits that description. Is our answer going to be less than 1? Well, sometimes. So we have 1/4 times 2. 1/4 plus another quarter is 50 cents, or half a dollar, right? So we could have put that over 1 and worked it the way we're used to, but we can also just make sense out of it using what we know. This product, the answer, is less than 1. But I could give you another given fraction, some other one. Instead of 1/4, let's make it 3/4. Why not? 3/4 times 2, because 2 is just some factor greater than 1. So 3/4 times 2 is going to be equal to 6/4, which is the same as 3/2, which is 1 1/2. And in this case, our answer is greater than 1. So it depends on the size of your original fraction. So to answer this one, you would use the third option, sometimes, because it depends on the original size of that fraction.